Hey everyone, how you doing? Corey Stibe here, coming at you another podcast today. Today's podcast, we're going to be talking about new cameras, kind of a new industry trend. That being the autofocus, also known as AF. And I know there is talk about HDR as well, but in this particular episode, we're going to talk about autofocus, and you're seeing a lot of manufacturers starting to come out with much better autofocus cameras, particularly Sony, Panasonic, and Canon. Particularly Sony and Canon are kind of having a dual autofocus showdown, as you'll call it. Very interesting. The Canon C200 is really fast focus. Obviously, the Canon 5D Mark IV real fast. Also, just a couple weeks ago at IBC, Sony launched three new Palm handheld cameras, which is a 1-inch CMOS 4K sensor, which has 273 points phase detection built into it, which is very, very nice. And some of the footage I saw, which you see on my website, CoreyStab.com, you'll see that Sony launches three new Palm handheld quarter description in my blog post. You can read a very detailed description on that, and you'll see videos in there too where it sees autofocus tracking and stuff like that. It's very fast. It looks really, really good, considering it's a built-in lens itself. Pretty decent zoom range in that. So I'm really curious to see, try to get my hands on this camera and really see how fast it is. Sort of sensor going from one depth of field point to another depth of field point, especially even with the Canon lineup as well. It's very interesting to see. I think you're really seeing not only HDR come into it, but also really the most important one you've been seeing for the past couple of years is the autofocus tracking system. Also, again, Canon and Sony have been the pioneers in this. They're really fighting tooth and nail. Panasonic is starting to finally come on board with that, and within the autofocus game, a lot of people kind of want that. They want that autofocus tracking to be much faster. You're starting to see that trend now. It's very, very interesting to see, and we'll see as we're inching closer and closer to NAB New York, and of course NAB Las Vegas later on next year, April time frame. You'll start to see a lot more autofocus sensor cameras, and also obviously HDR. HDR we'll touch about in another episode, but this episode is focusing on autofocus phase detection points. So if you look at my blog, go CoreyStab.com, you'll see it. You'll read a nice blog on there. And if you Google any type of autofocus, the Canon C200, the Canon 5D Mark IV has it, and you'll really get to see, and you'll notice that trend that's starting to happen. Autofocus, especially, is built not into the camera, but also into the lens as well. You'll kind of start to see and read that as you read other people's blog posts and stuff like that. So that's it for this episode. We'll see you on the next one, guys.